Everyone, this is Gary again. So last video we went over creating kind of the bare bones of our framework, and I was watching the video, and I noticed that I had an error in my code. It's not a big error, but it will kind of bug things out if it stays there and we try to load a view. So the error is actually within this load class. I defined two parameters for the string replace. There should actually be 3 parameters, which that is our last parameter. So I'm saying search for this, replace it with that inside of that string. So that was a quick bug fix that I needed to go ahead and get fixed for you guys. So there we go for that. So the last video, I said that was going to continue going a little bit further down the journey of actually creating our framework. And I figured, well, the best way of doing that is to start building something with our framework. That way we can add things as we need it. So what I'm actually going to build is this website. I'm going to build the PHP steroid website within this. So there's our main index. The server seemed to have lagged a bit, but I'm actually uploading part 1 of this video while I'm filming this video. So there's a lot of stuff going on my computer at the moment. So what we're going to do is I'm going to keep that here. I'm going to remove this foo function, and inside of our index page we'll say our index function will say load view, and our view is actually going to be called main index. I've kind of started using the colon myself to call my class my views, so that's my mistake. So inside of this framework, what we did inside of this this load class is the colon and the /. So this and this is exactly the same thing inside of this load class, and this will be a good test for that. So what we'll do is we'll create a new PHP file, and we'll call it index.php inside of that main folder. So now I'm going to create a basic HTML file. And inside of this file, I'm going to say hello world and make sure this works. Great, it works perfectly. So I want to test one more thing out, and we'll say data text is equal to hello Peter. And what we should do, this load function, the extract function, is actually the first time in my life I've used this function. I'm going to make sure it works correctly. And how am I going to do that? Is this text variable is actually, or this text key is, well, it's actually a key inside of an array. So this variable is actually a key within this array, this data array, and I'm passing the data array down as a second parameter inside of our view, so our load view. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh this page and make sure it says hello Peter. So the extract function works perfectly just the way we had planned. So now what we'll do is I'll remove this text And I will remove this as well. So I'll remove this data parameter. We don't need that for now, and I'll remove that line of code. So now what we need to do is I'm going to pull Bootstrap into this. So I'm going to go to getbootstrap.com. And I'm going to go ahead and go over to the getting started and include this into my code, into the head section of my page. And that should go ahead and define Bootstrap. And Bootstrap has one dependency. I'm just removing these comments. I don't like dirty code. So Bootstrap has one dependency, and that is actually jQuery, which I don't think this code has jQuery in it. So I'm going to actually go over to this just to see if I can read the code a little bit. And we'll say jQuery. So, yes, so it's saying if it's undefined, then throw a new error. So now what we'll do is I'll just Google search jQuery Cloudflare CDN. And I'm going to use probably a jQuery version 1.12. And I'm going to pull it from here. So above the script tag, I'm going to create a new script tag. So I'll say script src equals that. So now we're just pulling jQuery and Bootstrap from their CDNs. So now, inside of our body tag, I can say div class equals row div I'm just doing this to test it. Equals form control I'm just testing to make sure this works correctly, which it seems to. So Bootstrap is working correctly from its CDN, no issues. So now what I'm going to do is I'll go back over to the getting started and see if we can't get this over here. Actually, that's not what I want. I want this. So I'm going to view the page source, and I'm going to pull everything from the body tag except for the scripts, of course, and I'm going to paste that into the body tag over here. And I'm going to use NetBeans format function to go ahead and format the code correctly into something more readable and remove all that blank space that they give you. So now if I come over to our web page and hit refresh, I have just this bar at the top. I see that this is starting to cut off for some reason. I'm gonna look at their source again just to see if there's anything extra that they're including, which it doesn't look like it. See here. Okay, so that's the extra that they're bringing in, and that's fine. We'll say link rel equals style sheet href. We'll bring in that CSS. And now if we refresh, we should get a better output. Just like that. So now what we'll do is for our project name, I actually have a terrific looking image that I'm going to put into a new directory, and I'm going to call this assets. From this assets directory, I have FileZilla. I know and love FileZilla. I'm going to connect to our server. Inside of our server, I'm going to go to the directory above, and I'm going to go to var. And my internet's going incredibly slow at the moment because I'm still uploading part 1 for you guys. And I'll come over into the HTML folder. There should be an assets folder inside of there. And I'm going to just jump over to my email real quick. I had a friend build me out a logo file for PHP steroid. And this logo file is right here. So I'm going to go ahead and download this logo file to my computer, which is right here. And eventually it will transfer. So I'm going to create a new directory. I'm going to call this images. Inside of this images directory, that's where I'm going to put that logo. And I'm going to jump into that directory, and I'm going to rename this logo to just logo.png. And while that's renaming, I'm going to jump over here into our htaccess file. I'll make sure PNG is inside of our rewrite conditions, which it is. And I'm going to find where it says project name. And inside of there, I'm going to put img source equals assets slash img slash logo.png. So now what we should get is if we jump over to our browser, oh, sorry, we get a not found. Open link and new tab. Inspect. And so we're getting a permission denied on our server, which makes no sense. But we'll see if we can't work that out. And I'm going to go ahead and clear. img, and there's our logo.png. If I do a ls-lah, on that, we see that the logo is actually owned by root, which should be fine for now. So I'm going to jump into here just to find out more about what's going on. And what I'm going to do inside of my terminal is I'm just going to list all the users they give us. And I'm going to do a ch own, pass down that user to logo.png, and I'm going to do an ls-lah on that for now. So www-data is now owned by root. By www-data, and that's what our issue was. It was just a permission issue on the server, which again, I don't know if I said this in the first video. I don't recommend using root for this type of stuff. I actually recommend whatever user is going to be running Apache on the server. So later on, I will switch that user, but for now, I'm using root. So we should be able to go back and refresh this the main page and see if our logo is there. And it is. It looks like it's huge though. So I'm going to do an inspect element. And it doesn't look like I'm closing that image tag over here, which should be closing right there. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to just refresh the page. And I'm going to just inspect the element, and I'm going to say height is equal to 100%, which is great. So I'm going to give this, or I'll just do this. I'll say navbar brand. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to create a style. This is not recommended in W3, but this is not an HTML course. This is actually a framework course. So I'm going to do navbar brand img, and I'll set height equal to 100%. So now if I come over here and refresh this page, it should stay at that 100%, and which it does. So that's what our logo looks like. And if I continue building this out, then we should have a good looking page after the fact. So we should say home is /, and we should actually remove the home button. Well, we'll keep the home button, and we'll say download /download, and then we can say videos /videos, and then we can have another one say docs, and we can say documentation. So basically what this will do is it builds out basically the bare bones of our website. And the goal behind this is I wanted to show you the method of actually loading this stuff in dynamically through your view. So inside of our app, we should probably have another folder called template. And inside of that folder, we should say head and foot. And now we can say PHP load view template head. And we'll do the same thing here for foot. So here's our nav bar. I'm going to grab everything all the way up to the doc type, and I'm going to put that inside of our head.php. I'm going to do the same thing below this contain. Well, actually, I'll actually grab this container div as well and put that inside of head.php. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the closing tag of the container div and everything under it, and I'm going to put this inside of our foot.php. So now what we can do is go over to index.php, format it, and we condense our code. The code looks a lot smaller, a lot smoother inside of index.php. We won't have to continue writing this over and over, and if we change that, it changes across the entire website, and everything just runs smoothly. So PHP Steroid seems to be working wonderfully on getting Bootstrap installed and grabbing this this logo. So the next thing we'll do is we probably want to be able to implement models. Our libs folder, we'll be able to implement that later. Interfaces. So basically, if you want to have uniform models and things like that, then you'll use an interface for that. And we'll cover that here in just a bit. Controllers, you can have interfaces for controllers if you'd like, just to make sure that, so for instance, this abstracts should look something like this. And we'll say function index. And that's literally what an abstract looks like. So an abstract class is basically like a function or a list of functions. So we'll say inside of our controller, if I don't have this backwards, I think I don't. Hopefully I don't. We'll say controllers extends controller, but implements controller abstract, which I do have it backwards. So this will be interface. We'll move this. We'll say it's out of here, and we'll go into our main. Controller interface. So now, sorry about that. Kind of got confused for a moment. Abstract classes do something totally different, but an interface makes sure that your class is to a certain uniform standard. So, for instance, basically it says basically what an interface does. It says this class must have these functions. It can have other functions, but it must have these functions. And what we did inside that controller interface, we said every controller must have an index function. If it don't have an index function, it's not a controller. But you don't have to, you don't absolutely have to implement that because the only thing that's happening, the only way it's knowing that is by this line of code. So you can actually remove that line of code and it works just fine. But for now, just to stay more formal, I'm going to continue having that line of code into the program. So that's basically the load function working correctly. Join me a little bit later for another tutorial video, and we'll continue working on everything else inside of the framework. For now, have a great night, and I will see you tomorrow.